Hello everybody, Jake here for FM Scout, and in today's video we're going to be looking at some tips and tricks to help you guys save and make money in Football Manager 21. Much like in the real world, money makes everything tick in Football Manager, and whether you're a big club or small club, you guys should be keeping an eye on your finances. Hopefully today these tips are going to help you guys out. I will put some tips in here that might be a bit obvious and some that you might not know, some for new people, some for people who are experienced in the game, so hopefully everyone can get some use out of this. But obviously this video can only be a certain length, so if I miss out a tip that you guys think is a very good one or one that you use or found yourself, put it in the comments, help everyone out, and we can just get a load of nice tips in the comments too, so that you all have fun in your Football Manager saves with hopefully a bit more money to spend. Don't forget to like the video if you do enjoy it, and we are currently aiming for 100,000 subscribers on the channel, so usually around 50% of people watching the videos, if not more, aren't subscribed. So if you feel like if you've been watching these videos for a while from FM Scout, but you find that you aren't subscribed, then it'll be a big help if you do hit that subscribe button, and hopefully we'll be on 100,000 very soon. So the first tip I'm going to show you is very useful, especially at the start of Football Manager 21, due to the whole COVID incident, because obviously it means that a lot of teams, as you can see, Chelsea have £100 million in their balance, over £100 million, yet their transfer budget is only £12 million. This is quite annoying, but it's a thing that you're going to find in a lot of clubs. Teams are lowering the transfer budgets, because obviously with the uncertainty around COVID, they don't want to give you too much money to spend just in case. However, most teams, if you look around, will have ways to make money, and this is my first tip, and it is to always, at the start of your saves, check this clauses page, and continuously throughout your saves if you'd sold players, but it's especially useful at the start of saves because you can make money here that you wouldn't even have known about. You will have no hand in some of these deals. For example, Chelsea, Eden Hazard left around 2 years ago now, I believe, and you can make like £7 million towards your transfer budget just by looking at his clauses. So any clause that has a pound sign, dollar sign, euro sign, whatever you've got it set to, is a clause that you can either buy or sell. For example, Danny Drinkwater is at Chelsea, so you can buy this clause. So if you think that, here you go, Leicester are due £500,000 after 18 more appearances from Danny Drinkwater. If you're sure you're going to use Drinkwater 18 times, it might be a good idea to buy the clause early and save yourself 100k in the future, but the way I like to use it most is selling clauses. So you can see here that Chelsea will be due £4.5 million after 60 league goals pretty much. Now, you're going to have to play your save for 2 or 3 years, probably 4 years, and hope that Hazard does well just to see any of that money. So it will take a little bit of judgment for you guys to figure out, but in my opinion, I'd rather take £3.5 million now than £4.5 million in 3 or 4 seasons time. So all you have to do is then sell the clause here, and that will go, as long as you've got 100% transfer revenue, straight into your transfer budget. If it's 80%, then 80% of it will go into your transfer budget, but still, you remember our transfer budget was 12 million, so if we sell this one as well, you can see that it's gone from 12 million to 19 million just in a few button clicks. Now that's an extra player nowadays. It means that you can maybe sell one player less and still have a really good transfer budget to spend. So that is my first tip, always check your clauses. You might think, oh, this is just a Chelsea example because you've got Hazard. Yes, that is kind of right. Some clubs won't have as big deals as Hazard do. But I found often, if you're a Championship team or a League One team, you can usually find a sell-on clause from a player that left the club years and years and years ago, now a Premier League club, and you can usually make some money off that. So always keep an eye out for it. The availability of these clauses does change. For example, I had a save where I've missed that Hazard thing, and then 6 months in, I can't sell the Hazard clause because Real Madrid aren't willing to, maybe they don't have the finances to buy it out or something, I don't know. But yeah, just always keep an eye on it, and that can make you a pretty penny in the long run. Before we move on to my next tip, I'd just like to say my channel link will be in the description if you want to check it out. Thank you to all your support on there so far. We're aiming for 550 or 600 subscribers wherever we are when this video gets released. But yeah, your guys' support has been absolutely immense. I thank you so much. I'm really enjoying making videos for both FM Scout recently and my own channel. I haven't been doing Scout for too long now, only a month or so, but really enjoying it, and thank you for all your support. So let's get into this tip. Now the next tip I'm going to give you guys is extremely useful whether you're managing a top team or a lower division team. This is applicable for any team really. I actually found this out off FM Scout a few years ago now, I believe, before I was even like part of FM Scout, when I was just watching as a fan, and it's something I've used ever since, but something that when I see all my friends play, they never think about it, and I think it's a really good thing to point out, and that is, if a player's asking for a contract, let's say N'Golo Kante comes to you in January, right, and he says, I want an improved deal. Usually with a player like Kante, you'll want to keep him around, you're usually forcing to give him a deal. Let's say he wants £350,000 a week, right? you're then paying him an extra £50,000 a week until the end of his contract. However, if he comes to you saying, I want a new contract, boss, whatever, you can often say end of the season rather than immediate. People often miss this out and just focus on the playing time thing. But if you put end of season and click here, it will mean that that contract will only come into play once the season's done. Often that works even if a player is, like 9 times out of 10, even if a player is angry and wants a new contract, they'll accept it at the end of the season. If you put a red lock thing on here, which means that it's non-negotiable, it has to happen. So let's see if Conte agrees. There you go, he has agreed. When you go to negotiate a contract, you can see he does want £350,000. That's an extra £50,000 a week. You could negotiate that down, but let's say we pay him £350,000, right? That means that Conte will get a 3-year deal starting at the end of the year. So it's basically an extra year on top of his contract that he is nailed down to play for Chelsea for, and you won't have to pay this £50,000 a week until the end of the year. This is extremely useful when you have a youngster, for example, who's on £1,000 a week, they break into the team and then they want 10 grand a week. If you're playing for a championship club or a League One club kind of thing, you might not want to pay that just yet. So if you say end of the season, you're then free for that season of paying any of them wages, and then hopefully if your team does well from prize money and that kind of thing, you can afford that price boost. But it's just a way to save a bit of money in the long run. There's no reason not to try it. If a player says, no, I want to do an immediate deal, then fair enough, you do an immediate deal, but 9 times out of 10, they will accept an end of the season contract. So that's a very useful thing to do. Like I say, absolutely no reason not to try it, and it will save you guys a lot of money in the long run. Now, the next tip I'm going to give you guys is a general tip that most of your experienced players will now know, but if you're a new player, you might not think about it, and that is, don't be really silly with your money when you're buying players. Try and I find this is the best way to make money in Football Manager out of everything, buy young and sell on for profit. But what I would say specifically is keep an eye on the leagues such as this guy, Matias Arezzo, is playing in the Uruguayan divisions. Often the South American divisions, whether it's Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, they produce a lot of good youngsters, Wonderkids, quite regularly. And often they have really low release clauses, or they're just not valued as high because obviously in Uruguay, this guy basically, he's really good and you can get him for basically £1 to £2 million, which is really cheap for this kind of player. But what I'm trying to say is if you can often, if you look in these divisions, find just as good quality players with the potential to improve and sell on for way cheaper. So always keep an eye on that, and obviously you experienced players already know this, but a lot of new players might not think about it. And that leads me on to my next tip, which is sign players purely for profit. Now, it's all well and good if you've got £2 million in your transfer budget at the end of a window and you think, yep, I'm done with my spending, I don't need to spend that. If that's what you want to do, fair enough. But I would suggest sometimes, if you're financially stable, like Chelsea, they've got £100 million in the bank, they're not really desperate for cash. So if you save £2 million of his transfer budget, it doesn't make that big of a deal. So why not spend it? And I'm not saying go out and spend way over your budget when you've only got £2 million. I think someone like Arezzo, for example, if you get him scouted and you find a player like this for £2 million, it could be a regen, could be a other Wonderkid. In my opinion, it's a lot better than letting that money sit there. And the reason why is, as long as you're successful, you're going to make more money each season, and that £2 million will seem like nothing eventually. However, for someone like Arezzo, this is like one of the biggest bargains you can get. If you're playing Football Manager, find Arezzo. Anyway, he's £2 million, and obviously at Chelsea, they've got Werner, Abraham, Giroud. They've got no need for another striker. So they could loan Arezzo out for, let's say, 2 or 3 seasons, and then all of a sudden, Arezzo's worth 10 million, 20 million. And you make loads of money on him without ever having to pay him. If you can see the potential there, and it does require some good judgment, then it's definitely a good idea. I mean, imagine buying 5 youngsters, each of them £2 million, even if only one of them youngsters comes good and sells for £10 million in the future. You've paid for all the others, and often you will make a lot of profit. Now, I'm not saying, just for example, Arezzo in my 5 years in the future save, after 1 year, he moved from Uruguay to some German division team, one of the lower German division teams, and they sold him within a year for £81 million. You guys might not get them kind of results. Be surprised how often it happens. So buy young to sell on for a profit. Unless you're like PSG, there is no reason not to do this. Keep an eye on them South American divisions, and remember, buying a youngster who might not necessarily fit in your first team isn't the worst thing in the world, because either they'll come good and play for you, or you can sell them for a profit. So I think that's a very good idea. And it leads me on to my next tip, which is also to do with youngsters, and it's to do with under 21, under 18 teams, them kind of things. If you find a nation, let's say Uruguay for example, and you're a year, or even at the start, but mainly it's better with regens a couple of years into the future, if you go to under 19's team, you'll often find some of the best young players. Now, a lot of you will probably already know this, but The country I want you to specifically look at is Spain, and there's a reason for this. If we go to Spain, every player who plays for a team in the Spanish leagues has to have a release clause, no matter who they are. Now, if they're playing for Barcelona or Real Madrid, don't worry about it, but often you can find players who are playing for lower down Spanish clubs. Now, I haven't checked this already, but for example, this guy, Jose Saldana, not saying he's the best player in the world, but often you can find they've got a cheap release clause. So for example, this guy's got a £400,000 release clause. I wouldn't go for this guy, but every season, if you check the Spanish youth team, you could scout all these people. You'll often find that some of them are pretty decent. And then say you find 5 good players in the Spanish youth team, usually 2 or 3 of them will have a surprisingly low release clause. Often with the big teams, like this guy plays for Valencia, looks like a decent youngster, but he has a minimum fee release clause of £73 million. They're smart to it, but you can often find players who play for, I don't know if this one will specifically work, but Almeria, let's say, 18-year-old left winger, decent stats, he probably has a low release clause, £5.5 million is actually way more than I'd be willing to pay for him. But this is a kind of trial and error you have to do. I found players who are already world-class players or going to be world-class players within the next couple of years for the likes of £600,000, and this isn't just from 3rd division, 2nd division teams, this is from the likes of Bilbao, or actually one of the main clubs for it, putting a really low release clause on a really good player. So always keep an eye on it, and you can often find a bargain. I know, for example, there's one in this Spanish team already. Gavi is a 15-year-old player from Barcelona who is really good, and his release clause is £300,000. Like, that player at 15 is amazing, and for only, what was it, £300,000 is an unbelievable signing. I'm not saying you will be able to prime away from Barcelona, but often you'll find a regen playing for Zaragoza, let's say, and he's the next Virgil van Dijk. You think his release clause is going to be £70 million, and it's actually 600k. So I would suggest always scouting this Spanish team, whether it's the under-21s or under-19s, depending on how far you are into your save. You'll always find cheap release clauses. I've had seasons where I've picked up 3 or 4 under-19 players in one transfer window for like under £5 million for the combined total of all of them, and then they eventually went on to be like £60 million players each. It's worked on all football managers so far, and it seems like it's going to work on this one too. So always keep an eye on that. And now I'll move on to my next tip, which can be used for pretty much any team, no matter whether you're a lowly team or a high level team. And that is friendlies, guys. So what you want to do is you want to go to schedule, calendar, and then you want to make your friendlies. Now often, if you are new to the game, even if you're experienced, you might just miss this thing out, and basically your assistant manager or someone else in your club will usually arrange your friendlies unless you've got it set to you're arranging them yourselves. Now that doesn't mean you can't still influence them. For example, Chelsea have got some decent friendlies here, but they've got a big one against Inter Milan. Now that's going to make them the most money. As you can imagine, Inter Milan fans come over to Chelsea and you make all the money from their tickets. Similarly, Chelsea are going to Ipswich here. Ipswich probably wouldn't fill their stadium in a normal friendly, but if they're playing Chelsea, they might attract a lot more fans, fill out their stadium and sell more seats. So you can arrange your own friendly to make a lot of money. For example here, if I arrange a friendly and go for a big team, so if I go for, let's say Liverpool, that's going to be a team that's going to bring in a lot of fans to Chelsea's ground, you can see that we're paying them £362,000 to play the match, and we make nearly £700,000 in revenue from the friendly. Now £350,000 doesn't seem like that much, but if you're a team like Ipswich or Charlton, that could change the game in terms of your finances. But what I like to do specifically is when you've got a free week like this, or if you don't have a free week, you can always cancel a friendly, is instead of a friendly match, set up a league. And then in the space of, let's say, 3 days, you can have, let's play Liverpool, Tottenham and Arsenal. There you go. In the space of 3 days, not only will that build up your team's match fitness, yes, they might pick up a few injuries or get a bit less fit, but with most teams, especially the big teams, you can easily put out a different 11 for each friendly and it won't matter too much. But what I'm trying to get at here is you've spent 1 million on the Liverpool game, 1 million on the Tottenham game and 1 million on the Arsenal game. Roughly anyway. So let's say you spent 3 million on making these friendlies, you've then made 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. Altogether that's 4.5 million. You've made a 1.5 million pound profit from them friendlies. Doesn't seem like a lot when you're Chelsea, but like I say, if you are Ipswich, that's a big deal for you. Now I don't often manage in the really low leagues like League 2 and non-league, but I've heard people who do this kind of thing and it makes them a lot of money straight off the bat. Now obviously be careful, if you only have £300,000 in your finances, don't go booking a match with Liverpool. I don't even know if the game would allow you to do that, but just keep an eye on them kind of things. But quite often you can see this is a really good way to make some quick money, and you might even suggest it's better for your team to play Liverpool than it is Charlton anyway because they get better match experience. So that is my next tip, and now we're going to move on to another tip. Now my final tip is to save money in the long run, and you can also make money from this too if you play your cards right. But it is to be vigilant, and I know that seems like a really small thing, and it's like, why are you saying that, Jake? But there is a reason, and for example here, I was in my Chelsea save, and I went to buy Gianluigi Donnarumma. This is a recreation, obviously, this isn't the exact save I did it in, but I went to bid for him, I did other negotiations, and then I came out and I actually looked around and I saw, hold on, he's only got a contract until 2021. Now, if I see this, what this means is, obviously we're only a year away from 2021, when that contract gets within 6 months of itself, you can then approach to sign him for free and it won't cost you any money. So what I'd always say to you guys is if you want to buy a player, check when their contract is expiring, because often in this case you can go, okay, I'll get you in January for free. If you don't immediately need him in your team, then maybe add him to your shortlist, and then you get notified as well when his contract gets within 6 months of being out. And it leads me on to the bigger point of this whole picture. This was just a little thing I wanted to say, and this is something I do at the start of every summer transfer window. So what I do is I go to the player search feature. Let me just show you how you get there. So usually on your scouting center you've got all this, right? You go player search, and this is where you can basically be your own scout. And what I do is I go to contract status. You can, if you're in January, click expiring in 6 months. You can see all the players by highest value whose contract is expiring in 6 months, aka all the players you can get for free next year. For example, this guy, Jefferson Soltado, I don't know how you pronounce that, but as his league's contract runs out in January, because what's he, Brazilian league I assume, yeah, you can then approach, he's only got 6 months on his contract, so you go to contract and you can approach to sign him. Now from here, basically, you offer him a contract and then he'll join your team next season for no fee at all. Now that seems quite obvious, but the reason I'm suggesting this is I do it every January to find players who are running out of contracts, even if I know they're not going to be in my team. If I see someone whose contract is running out, whether it's a youngster or a decent first team player, who I think is worth quite a lot of money still, obviously I wouldn't do it for a 36-year-old player, but if, let's say, I don't know, for example, off the top of my head, if Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's contract was running out, I might offer him a contract so that next season, even if he's not going to be part of my team, I can loan him out, sell him, and all of a sudden I make a profit on him. And that's also why at the start of every summer transfer window, I click expiring in 1 year, and then you can search by value, and you can see Donnarumma is on there, like we mentioned, Memphis Depay, Florian Thauvin, Angel Di Maria, Wijnaldum, and then you can take this into account because you know that if you put all of these players, let's say, into a shortlist, maybe 4 or 5 of them will get a contract renewal. You won't be able to get your hands on them. Let's say Willy Bolly signs a new deal with Wolves. But by the time you get to January, a lot of these will be available for free. You'll get notified, you'll have forgot about it, and all of a sudden you've got these players that you could buy. But it also means you can get them on the cheap if you do need them immediately. So I would always say, when you start a transfer window, have a quick look at this. Have a look at which players' contracts are expiring, because you can often find a good deal, whether it's for your own team or to sell on for a profit. So there you are, guys. There were my tips to help you save and make money on your Football Manager saves. Like I say, you might have known some of them, you might have found some new ones in there, but remember, not every Football Manager player has been playing for years. Some people are new to the game, and there's even people like myself, I've been playing it for a long time. I miss little things like setting the contract to end of season, all of that stuff that can just save you a little bit of money, especially when you're at a club who are struggling financially. And who doesn't love having extra money to spend on Football Manager? It's probably my favourite part of it, signing players for your team. So hopefully this will help you guys out with that. If you did find it useful, let me know. If there's anything that you think I missed, again, write it in the comments just so other people can see it, and then we can create like a nice little community thing where you can just come on, look on the bottom, and you can find another 10 ideas there about things that you can do to make money in Football Manager. So I hope you are all enjoying FM21. I hope you're all staying safe and staying well. I've been Jake for FM Scout. If you did enjoy the video, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and goodbye, guys.